Hi. Okay, good. Thank you. Stella, good to see you from Bangalore, ma'am. Suji, Tariq, Yogesh. Oh, we are funny as well. Awesome. So Farinda Sama is here too. Great. So no pressure to Nitish. So let me bring Nitish on right now and let me add some spotlight. I hope everybody can see and hear him. If you can hear and see both of us, type Y in the chat box right now. I'm going to enable chat right now. And if you guys are watching it on YouTube or LinkedIn, etc., just type yes. We can see your comments and we'll read them out. So excellent. So funny. Nitish. Beg your pardon. It's 2016 IIT Madras Chemical Engineering. I think he had a fairly straightforward path. Did this internship at Dr. Reddy's. There's Japan Sumitomo there, and then he worked for Government of Telangana, which is very interesting. We'll get to that as part of Actors Advisors. And then, the trajectory takes off. I think he started a company, Phone Post. Would love to hear that experience. And then bip.so. I've seen that you have marquee clients, SuperTeam DAO. I'd met Cash, in Bangalore. The guy, I think Tanmay Cash and all these guys. Some really good marquee clients there. Excellent. And seems like now you've started ANSI. Congratulations on, the traction at Product Hunt. I've used I haven't used the product, but I've seen the pricing, etc. So first up, thank you so much for agreeing to come on this channel. And thank you, Funny, for also doing the introduction. Would love to know your journey, but most important question. What was your hostel in IIT Madras? And how many girlfriends did you have? Let's start there.
Yeah. Thanks for the intro and thanks for having me here. So yeah, in IIT Madras, I was in Jamuna hostel. I hope you weren't in Ganga.
No, I was Saraswati, yeah.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, no girlfriends. I actually had my current wife and we were already dating by then. So we were in a long distance relationship. So nothing on that front in college.
Good stuff. And one small thing, as you continue to talk about your journey, your location says Nevada. Where are you right now as we speak?
Actually, I was in Nevada until June. We just moved to Oregon. So I'm currently in Eugene. It's 2 hours south of Oregon. 2 hours south of Portland, sorry.
Okay, so it must be early hours right now for you. Again, thank you so much for waking up and making time for this.
No worries. It's 6:40 a.m. But
wow. Okay.
Not too early.
Cool. So let's get into this. So how was your campus life? Let's start there. Entrepreneurship is obviously a bug. Did you have these thoughts? How was your campus life? What were you doing, etc.? Talk us about that. What was your mind frame like? And talk us also a little bit about your prior middle class family. Was it like a tiger dad? What was going on?
So to be honest, campus never had entrepreneurship in my mind during the campus life. So actually growing up, my dream was to become a badminton player. Until my 10th grade or something, I was actually professionally practicing. Very early on, joined the Gopichand Academy and played at the national level and all of that. And
wow,
in my 9th grade, had some health issues and had to take a 4 or 5 month break, and the fitness level never really came back to that level. So after that, in 10th, I just took a pause and said, okay, it's just getting too much. I need to call it quits, and sort of gave up in 10th grade. And then I was figuring out, okay, what next? By then, my brother had gotten into IIT Guwahati. So I didn't really know much back then, but I said, hey, okay, looks like, this is, what's next for me. So I, 11th and 12th, I went into Fiji and then got into IIT Madras. And the minute I was on campus, I got back into badminton. So my 5 years was full of sports at, in campus. So I was also the Institute Sports Secretary, played for college in entirety, for all 5 years. And so, college was more about, sports and fun, and never really had a vision for, I'm going to become, I'm going to go into technology or become an entrepreneur or any of that.
Wow. So wait, hold on. Let me just backtrack. So your brother is also an IITM.
Yep.
Whoa, okay. Too much IQ in that direct. Okay, got it. So now I see. So great. So there are very strong middle class. I mean, foundational values. Parents must have been like the upbringing must be extremely focused on education. Mine is also very similar. My brother went to like an NIT. But you get to know like a little bit about the discourse. How people value education, etc. So brilliant, excellent. So you were the institute sports secretary. So it must have been always like obviously you were. Naturally, like there's a proclivity towards badminton. So you're playing, you're doing academics, chemical engineering. Fantastic. What happened after campus? So why Actis Advisors? Was it a campus placement or was it some internship that led to that? Talk us about that.
Yeah. So actually it wasn't internships that led to it. Like both my internships were in core chemical engineering. So Dr. Reddy's, I found it myself off campus, but the Japan internship with Sumitomo, that was on campus. And I really loved my time there. And I wanted to go back. I had an offer there, but then it felt I was choosing it for all the wrong reasons. I was choosing it because the location was great, not because I loved the work. Right. So then I said, okay, maybe then it's not the best course of action. And at that time, I'm not sure how it was when you were in college, but in our time, management consulting was the thing. Right, for anybody who's not going into a core job, you're supposed to go into finance or management consulting. So that was like the most sought after thing. So I said, okay, fine. Applied for all the McKinsey, BCG. I think back then we just had 3 or 4. So it was McKinsey, BCG, and then it was Octus. And
one second, let's pause here. You're 2016 batch and I'm 2010 batch. When you say back then I'm way back then. Okay.
Not too. Actually, then we just missed overlap by 1 year. I started 2011.
So rule number 1, never make a person feel bad on the internet about the age. Okay. Go ahead. Okay. So you were so obviously you were campus secretary, assuming you had great GPA and you have all the sports and leadership qualities. So it had to be I won't say rat race, but the conventional like day 1, day 2 placements, McKinsey, BCG, Goldman Sachs, etc. Then what happened?
Yeah. So and that's how I got into Octus. I didn't get into McKinsey or BCG, and the number 3 was Octus. Got into Octus, and before I got into Octus itself, there was this project. Octus was a very small firm. We had around 75 consultants. And there was this very cool project in Hyderabad, very long-running project with the Telangana government. And one of my senior was working there. And because I speak Telugu, it was very, very likely that I would be put on that project. So I knew if I was going to join Octus, that is where I would be. And that was like a happy place for me. So joined Octus, and that's how I started working with the Telangana government.
Wow, excellent. And I just wanted to ask this so you said you liked Japan, that location. What did you like about that location?
I think the culture, it was so welcoming. I spent roughly 6 to 8 weeks there, and everyone was so welcoming. I mean, I just have this one memory. We went to a mall one day. It was in a small town again, actually small village, because we were working in a factory. So many folks didn't speak English, right? But so one day we went to the mall. We were trying to figure out where the dollar store equivalent was. So we couldn't figure it out. So we randomly went to one shop in the mall and asked the cashier there. That was the only person who was manning that whole store. She left her store and came along with us searching for she didn't know where it was. So she started asking people and ultimately got us to our destination, then went back. Right. And everyone was like treating us like, oh, we have guests to our house. It was like we were actually guests to their house just because we were guests to their country, right? And I think that felt really good. And I think I think it was mostly the culture that attracted me.
Yeah, I think so, some of my friends also who've been to Japan, the men, they just fell in love genuinely with the opportunities, but more importantly, the culture, the hospitality, like you said, the humility of people. They could resonate with the Indian, or maybe a little bit of the culture, like you said. Some of the women I met didn't like it though, because they still have like a little bit of mild to moderate patriarchy element. Okay, cool. So circling back to the focus of this theme. So, okay, so you're doing actors, and then what happens? So that's 2-3 years, right? So that's 2016 plus 3, 2019 is just 1 year before COVID.
Yeah, so that's where it gets interesting. So until then, I thought my path was, consulting, MBA, and, product management or whatever.
Sorry, I had to close my door. Yeah, go on. Sorry.
So yeah, I think that was the path, I had in mind. But what happened was with the Telangana government, I was also looking at, we were doing a lot of like policy work and stuff. So by the time I joined, we already had an innovation policy in place, and the government had promised to set up an innovation cell. So I took it on myself to try and move a few of those initiatives forward. So we just helped set up, a basic innovation cell, and we were looking for a chief innovation officer, and that's where Funny comes in.
Now I understand that. So that's good. You also have a rapport. You start working together. You see the positives, negatives. Yeah.
Yep. So when Funny came in, it was just both of us. So we are trying to figure out, talk to people, understand the Hyderabad ecosystem, and we're trying to get the innovation cell off the ground. So early days, we worked a lot together until, he had a small team in place under him at the government. So that's when I think we started building a rapport, and I had actually asked Funny to, write me a recommendation for my MBA too. Right. So I was really like, I really loved Stanford, and I thought, I should give Stanford, like, because it's so difficult to get in, I should give it, at least 2 tries. So the first time I thought, I'll just apply for Stanford, give it my 100% and see. And that's when I asked Funny to write me a reco. That didn't go as expected. And then I was talking to Funny, told him, maybe I want to go into, product management or something. Is there any, company in your angel portfolio that's looking for people, right? Then Funny was like, hey, you know what? I'm planning to do startup. Why don't you just join me? We'll figure out something together. Back then, it was just like a few ideas that he had. So it was at that stage. And then, yeah, that's how, I was like, okay, fine. Some point, I think by then, I think somewhere I felt consulting was not for me. And after an MBA, I wanted to do product management and maybe in the long run, do a startup or at least stay in the tech field. So when I told Funny all of these plans, he said, why do you want to do an MBA, product management and all of that? Just join me. You can learn on the job. And
Yeah, so let's just pause there for a second. So for those of you watching and do not know Funny in the Sama was the founder of Redbuzz. Redbuzz had a huge exit for like $1 gazillion. He's almost like a celeb level, not almost. He is a celeb, and he I think later did CIO, Chief Innovation Officer at Telangana government, and then now he's doing this company. So coming back to that point, so a lot of viewers have this. Even I had this. So Stanford, Harvard, and that hangover of maybe McKinsey, BCG, they're still there. People are still, can't generate that escape velocity, but it seems like you've done it, right? What was that mindset shift? Why did you say F off to those big guys, seemingly big, and then actually solve some real problems? What I think is real. what was the mindset before and after? It'll be very helpful for people because people across all levels are trying to do this MBA thing. I'm not against MBA, but I'm just saying there's something more real, right? So what was your mindset there? What drove you to that decision?
I think it was the early experience, like after moving on from Octus and while we were working on phone post, that's when I realized that, when we pick up, these problems and we're just working on them, like whatever skills or network or everything we need, right, gets built on the side, right? I didn't know coding. I didn't know designing. I didn't know product management. I've never written a user story, nothing. Like I worked for the government for 3 years and I'm a chemical engineer, not even a computer science engineer, right? But during the course of phone post and, BIP now, like, I mean, I just learned what is needed to be learned. Like even now, I wouldn't say like I know coding or I know designing on Figma, but I know enough to get things done, right? And tomorrow when I need to learn more, I have the confidence of learning more. So I think once I got a taste of that at phone post, it just felt, hey, like, do I really need to spend 2 years again in college, reading some books while I can actually, build things and learn on the go?
Excellent. And just for the benefit of users, can you talk about phone post? What is phone post? How did that idea come? And what is the status now?
So phone post is a voice messaging app. Okay. So back then the insight, like we were actually researching another idea and we were talking to a lot of people. One trend we saw, especially when we were talking to folks, whose primary mode of communication was not English, we realized that they don't really use WhatsApp for asynchronous communication. It's mostly forwards and it's used like a social feed, right? Whereas like real communication still happened over a call. There were a few Telegram groups where people used to, do a lot of voice messages. So that was Telegram or WhatsApp groups where people did a few voice messages, but that was the extent of async communication. But we know how beneficial asynchronous communication is, right? Like you just have a question, post it, with the full context to 10 groups, get answers. Like that's just not happening there because the keyboards are not great. We didn't grow up with Telugu keyboards or Hindi keyboards or whatever, right? So the input mechanisms were slow or whatever the reason was, people weren't doing it. So we said, hey, like voice messages are so cool, but they have a few challenges. The other person has to listen to it before they understand the context. So I said, okay, let's just build a small messaging app where, when somebody sends a voice message on WhatsApp, back then there was this thing, okay, like people who use voice messages for communication couldn't really type and hence they're doing voice. It wasn't more of a, hey, this person likes voice thing. So people were hesitant to send voice messages because of that perception. So those were our insights. So I said, let's build a chat application where voice is the default. There's no keyboard, right? You have to send a voice message and every message gets transcribed. So the receiver can just see the content, skim through the content. And if they want to listen, they tap on any word or, it was built to consume and create voice messages essentially. So you just select, let's say I want to send a message in Telugu, I just select Telugu and send hi Meeru ella unnaru or whatever, and then the recipient just sees that transcript before even needing to play the audio.
Wow. So seems like an interesting problem to solve. I think so where were you, like, so it seems like a vernacular transcript message. So there must have been some really good, I don't know if you guys use like some, the servers, etc. Like you have like these chat servers. We were building back then 2015 an anonymous chat app. So I have some experience there, but we couldn't scale. Like it was very difficult to get users and users concurrently at that time, and behavioral change was a pain in the A.
I can relate to it totally. So those were the challenges we faced too. For us, acquisition was actually great. like we were running ads on Facebook and Google, and TikTok had just launched their ad platform, and we ran ads on TikTok. And like at one point, I think towards the end, we had like our cost per install was 0.1 rupees from ads.
Whoa, you're kidding.
No.
Because one would assume that, see, one more thing I faced is in an Android app in the lower tier 2, tier 3 market, the memory space is very less. So to install one app, they had to delete one app. So that is the thing also I encountered. I would assume that's the same problem, but 1 paisa is 10 paisa is phenomenal.
Yeah. So we had the same problem. We like focused extensively on keeping the bundle size to as minimum as possible and all of that. So we focused heavily on that, and we were getting like installs at a very cheap rate, but retention was the problem. Like, because there's no critical mass, I think people come, try it, move on. So we also built, hey, like if you don't have your network, what can you do? We built a few workflows there. Compose here, send on WhatsApp. So that goes as a link. So it goes as a text plus link kind of format in WhatsApp. So the transcript goes along with a link that anyone can click to hear the voice message. So we built a few of those workflows, but over time, what we realized is, people are composing and sending on WhatsApp, but they're not really composing to converse on phone post itself, right? And that was one. And then of course, like transcription on these lower end devices, doing on device transcription of course is not really a possibility, because like good models at that time took around 100 MB space, right? So you either had to compromise on quality or do it on cloud, and we were doing it on cloud, and of course like the cost quickly shot up. And when COVID hit, that's when I think we said, hey, without a clear path towards building a sustainable network or revenue, I think we should not pursue an idea. Like immediately when COVID hit, we we wanted to take this thing, like we said people will not fund money guzzling businesses, and we took a call to just put it on autopilot.
And this transcript, so the translation, did you use off the shelf some APIs, or was it custom built AI?
No, I think for a long time we used Google's cloud API. And towards the end, we were actually experimenting with taking an open source one and building our own model on top of it. But that was around the time when COVID hit. So we didn't really push it out to production.
Got it. Okay. So one thing is, a lot of members who are watching this, remember one thing. So I think one smart thing, at least PhonePost team did, is you didn't build the AI ground up. A lot of techies have this problem of, let me first build the technology. That is the most suboptimal approach. First build the product, get users, which is very, very painful. I like to think of it like proximity is not contact, right? Meaning, long story short, we touch our heart, we touch our brain, but we are not a neurosurgeon, we are not a cardiologist. Same thing, just because you touch WhatsApp every day, you're touching Telegram, Facebook, doesn't mean you can make a WhatsApp or a Telegram. It's a very difficult process. It's very, very incredibly hard to like get that critical mass. I failed, and Nitish has been kind enough to like sort of share his journey. It's a very difficult problem, but kudos for attempting and solving in the vernacular sector. I've seen some people take off, like I think Pratipli took off. With ShareChat is really, really massive. Would be interesting to see how they did their CAC and acquisition. Great. Okay, coming back to your journey. So it seems like you've got the tech chops. Now you know how to build like async, chat, and you're in that space. So now I can see the path to the next to bip.so and now ANSI. So seems like chat messaging is an area that you're slowly developing competence in. And then what happens? So by this time, so COVID hits, obviously, and very bootstrapped, or did you raise some capital, like $500,000 or something?
No. We like consciously did not want to do that. We said, let's be bootstrapped until, we reach some signs of product market fit. And that's when, we can get in capital.
Excellent. So, okay. So then this is 2020 March. And of course, the Honorable PM just declares this. So then what happens? How does it eventually go to talk us about that transition to bip.so?
Yeah. So I think sometime in May was when we we just said, okay, let's for the existing users of PhonePost, what we did was, hey, if you're just using it to compose, Google had another API that was free. I mean, it wasn't an API. They had they exposed something in Android itself, that on device that we could use. So we just used that, converted it into, a voice typing keyboard, so that our existing users who are using it to compose, at least they're happy. So we just did that. And so like put it on autopilot. It's still actually just last week I was looking at it. It's still up and it still works. It's been like 2 years since
you can't pull the plug on the first love, is it? Yeah, it's hard. So I remember Jibber, my first company that I registered, the college gossip chat app. I still have it. I'm still trying to sell that code base. That registered still exists, hoping that something will happen. But yeah, at least Pixeltests took off. So yeah, but it's good. So okay, now I understand. And then so you seem to like, okay, get the users here, and then what are the next steps? How did you get the big marquee clients? Talk us about that phase.
Yeah. I think before that, like, I think on the transition, right, after PhonePost, we were trying to figure out, what next, what should we try out, right? And we spent like some time researching different, like I think our main criteria was at that time, let's not do something that already exists, right? Like not just another like SaaS app or a SaaS product. Like if it already exists, if you're creating a new category, then that's cool. You're doing it for a different user base, then that's cool. But let's not just do something that's already there, but cheaper, or already there, but 2x better kind of a thing. Right. We wanted to see if we can come up with some product that doesn't exist in the world, something that opens up a new market. So those were some of our, criteria. And during that time, we also, just to keep ourselves occupied, and in that rigor, we also built a small app on Slack. It's like a 360-degree anonymized feedback collection thing for teams, right? So we were building that and simultaneously researching, what else we could do. And then like one of the thought we had is, while building PhonePost, or while we were building the Slack app, or, there's a lot like our network can help us with. Like for PhonePost, I remember this one very specific example. Like we're trying to figure out, these are all like cheap low-end phones, Android phones with not great internet. So you needed the audio file to be as low in size as possible for us to stream it to the cloud, get the transcript, then also, send the file to the other person. All of that should feel as instant as a text message in WhatsApp, right? Because that's what people peg against. So we're trying to figure out what's that file format where the transcription quality doesn't go for a toss too. Right. Of course, like if we had done that research ourselves, maybe in a few weeks or a month, we would probably end up at the same solution. But luckily, like in Funny's network, we knew somebody who was doing a startup in the audio space. We reached out to them. They put us in touch with an engineer, and that person just said, hey, Opus is the format, and you'll don't think about anything. Google recommends, go with it. And overnight, the file size reduced by 10x with like no perceivable difference in transcription quality.
Wow.
Right. So like there's a lot, there are a lot of problems that are already solved out there, right? That we don't need to solve again ground up. And there are like many examples where we just benefited from sharing what we're doing with our network and getting them to help us figure out solutions. So we said, hey, like is there a platform where, people can share what they're building, share their problems, and see if, someone from their network or extended network or outside can come help them out. Right. And then it felt like, hey, this is sort of like GitHub, right? Because GitHub, you go put an open source project, random people are collaborating, building great things. Right. But we're not talking only about code collaboration. This could be marketing, like, hey, Google Ads, this is the problem I'm facing, any hack, or, it could be about feature prioritization. It could be hundreds of other things. So what is the platform for non-developers? Platform like GitHub for non-developers. So that was the thought we had in our head, and said, maybe if it doesn't exist, it's something that the world will benefit from. And that's why we started building BIP.
Wow. And who is we?
Again, it's Funny and me, but BIP, it was the same team. Wow.
Okay, excellent. So that's very interesting. So it seems like it organically, you stumbled on a problem, and that you morphed into the pain that you guys seem to have felt. And also, I just want to remind or touch upon one very key point that Nitish had shared about building things using no code or off the shelf. Very, very important to try your MVP. I know everybody has said it. Eric Ries has said it. Steve Blank has said it. Everybody has said it. I think I just pushed it down to my team again and again. Don't write code even if you're a techie. First, please validate if it's working or not. For that, you just need a simple landing page or something very, very simple. And you can validate in 30 minutes. If you can't validate in 30 minutes, it's you're doing something wrong. Most likely you're over-engineering, which is not required, right? Very important to figure out the problems. But one thing seems like on the underlying current is you've now, how to build technology, about, compressing audio, which is not useful here, but that those technical chops and those first principles thinking will easily translate to, and that's why maybe BIP sort of, the traction was much more, slightly more explosive. Okay. So then now you've felt a real pain, and the team has also felt it. That's very important, right? Sometimes only founders feel the pain in silos and they're trying to convince the other spouse. But jointly, people have felt that. Then what happened?
Yeah. So then I think we started building it out. We distilled it down further, saying, hey, if we want to build this platform, the core should be documents, because that's where everybody collaborates, right? Any non-coding collaboration sort of happens on documents or chat, and chat happens in, let's say, Slack or Discord. So we need the platform to be centered around documents. So we built a small editor, and we spec'd out the V1 and started showing it around. And surprisingly, Web3 was where we got interest from, because that's how people were building there. Just build everything out in the open. Actually, we saw this trend on Twitter at the same time called build in public. So that was also one of the motivation for us, saying, hey, build in public can actually result in, our vision of GitHub kind of platform. But the challenge there was a lot of these folks were indie hackers. They didn't really need to write documents, right? They were happy with tweets. But this other segment of Web3, I think they were also building in public in a way. And because they are collaborating with larger sets of people, they had documents, they had this necessity to share documents, seek inputs from multiple people, and all of that. And most of them, were in Discord, pseudonymous, etc. So we quickly launched the Discord integration, and there were a few clear patterns that we could see, right? Because they're pseudonymous, a few people didn't really want to share their emails. Right. But if people were following Notion, using Notion or Google Docs, you'd need to seek emails to share access, or you just need to make it public. Anyone can do anything, which is a recipe for disaster. Right. So at BIP, we had these cool workflows. We built a Git workflow. Underlying, we use the same Git library, but we built an abstraction on top of it so that non-developers can also easily use that, branching and merging framework. So that our hypothesis was, for large communities, now you can just give out your document and say, hey, come edit it. And they can just edit and send a merge request like you would do in code. So that was something that Web3 communities loved. Then our Discord integration, essentially what it did was, what it does is it gets all the members from your Discord server along with their roles, and it keeps it in sync. So as people move in, move out, get new roles, we keep it in sync on BIP, and you can just manage permissions of those roles. So if you say, hey, core contributors have access to this doc, you give somebody that role in Discord, they automatically get access to that document in your BIP workspace. Right. So that really made life easy. If you go to any like active DAO, right, DAO that's actually building stuff, you definitely see like one or two channels, either the wiki channel or the writers guild kind of related channels, where people are constantly like, hey, I need access to this. How can I do it? Then somebody comes back and says, hey, can you DM me your email? Right. So, and you see 5 or 6 of those conversations every day. So with BIP, that whole thing is gone.
Wow. So seems like you stumbled on the Web3 space, or there's initial traction on that, which is contrary to how a lot of people get into Web3. Most people like me got in because we were short-sighted, like, okay, cryptocurrency is growing up, let me get into it, let me do something. And then we stuck around for it so long, we saw 1-2 cycles and we survived. So you had initial traction here, and now BIP, you saw some pain, and then you're building these workflows. So, okay, just elaborate for audience. You're saying workflow very easily, but I know how complex it is to even build a workflow. Either you have to have a technical, staff member or 1 or 2 people, build these quick thesis maybe in a month or 2, and it should be working, not breaking down, and he should show up on time in a timely fashion. So what is your staff composition? Talk us a little bit about that. And more importantly, how are you reaching out to these DAOs? Is it manually recruiting, cold emailing, or just, I don't know, somehow you put it in one Discord server or 2-3 servers, spam or something, and then, but just sometimes things take off. But I've seen that is very rare, 5-6%. Initially, both the founders, or all the 3 founders have to like do some hardcore Zoom calls or something like that, right? So talk us about the team composition and the mindset and skills and chops, and also about now the customer acquisition, because it seems like you're very close to finding a pain.
Got it. So I think when we started building BIP, it was 3 of us. So me, Funny, and we had another engineer, very young guy, just out of college, but he was that person who didn't care about, which language, which technology. I'll just go learn it, build, like whatever is needed for the product, I'll learn it, build it. And
where did you get him, man? How did you yeah.
So he built a large chunk of the V1 of BIP. And yeah, it was like that, like, because it was a very vague idea, right? It was more about, hack together something in 3 to 4 weeks, show it to users, then figure out what's missing, put that together, show it to users. So I think around the time when we had the whole Git workflow and Discord integration, that's when we started seeing, our first users who come, use, and stay back. Right. I think one of our really power users, Mesh Finance, they've been with us for over 1.5 years now, and all their documents are on BIP. Like literally every document is on BIP.
Wow, phenomenal! I paid you the whole $120 for one license, like, because I saw on the site it's $10 a month. So roughly, I was extrapolating. That's great.
$10 per 1,000 community members, and it peaks at 100 per month.
Okay.
So yeah, wow. So that's where we started, like this thing. And sorry, remind me what was staff composition. I think we started there, and like slowly as.
Sorry, go on.
Sorry,
you acquire Mesh.finance.
Got it. Yeah. So Mesh actually came organically, like we were exploring, okay, which segments to target. Build in public audience on Twitter wasn't really working out because they're not writing documents, and this is more like a force fit. So who's the other early adopter segment that we can go behind? Right. And we had a hypothesis that Web3 may work because they're all, sort of building in public in a way. And then I don't recollect who, actually one of our friends just casually connected us to Rohit from Mesh Finance, and Rohit looked at it. He's like, oh my God, I need this yesterday. And he started using it. So it was more like, it was just a connection, and yeah.
Wow, brilliant. So I think many people also underestimate how long or how these serendipitous conversations happen. I think there's one famous book in which there's a line, I forget the name of the book, like always have a cookie. What that really means is, like, if somebody introduces you to something else, just take that introduction, never leave it, follow up, be a cockroach. People think that things just take off. That never happens. Like, I remember even for Pixeltests, my first customer, I spoke for 2-3 hours. I became his boyfriend, girlfriend. I knew everything about him. And then I got like $30 from him. So I'm sure, distribution, one is product market fit. And you have explained about your pain, etc., how you went through for 2-3 years. There's the other one is distribution. Very, very painful. People underestimate the time, energy it takes. Almost always something taking off never happens. Almost always. Yeah. Right? It's brute force, brute force, brute force. Then you see some patterns. Excellent. So now seems like Rohit from Mesh Finance sees something extremely valuable. He's there for a year. And then I'm sure, so there are many, you're now at this time, not the indie hackers, but the second tier, like of the kind of like the Rohit, that's your customer avatar and persona. So it seems like you're trying to track them, etc. And then what happened? Where was BIP? Like, how much did you like scale to it? And seems like you've again pivoted, right? So talk us about that transition.
Got it. So I think once Rohit started using, we said, hey, looks like Web3 is the space to go behind. And we just started reaching out initially to folks we knew in our networks who are doing something related to Web3. Then people who are making a lot of noise on Twitter while still building something concrete. We started, DMing them and try to get in touch some way or the other, essentially, right? And over time, like as the product matured and this thing, we had a few interns who would go on to Discord, join the servers of these DAOs, hang out there, see if we make sense for them, and then pitch BIP at the right time. So essentially that was our approach, like go passively spend time in these servers, keep looking out for opportunities. Whenever we feel, hey, like people are talking about problems they're facing in their document or writing workflows, go pitch BIP at that time.
Yeah, that's the right way to do it. Like add some value, keep adding value, etc. Value pitch for VVP. Excellent. So then what's kind of interesting to me is like, so seems like you found some, I don't know if it's a mild to moderate pain, and it doesn't seem a high pain from a layman perspective. So then, and then you had some traction. Talk about what point of, how much like was the altitude of the traction? And then why did you again pivot to this very interesting product, ANSI or Answer? I don't know how you
yeah, it's called Lanzi. So I would say like you're right. I mean, it's not a pressing pain, right? It's a good to have. And while we were getting a lot of users, some of them retaining, right, everybody, like a large chunk loves the product, but like for example, I loved Notion for a long time now, but I've never been a power user because there's no like pressing need for it right away. Right. So we have the same problem at BIP. We get a large chunk of users who really love the product, but very few of them retain. And we said, hey, if we focus only on Web3, when the fad dies out, we may also, sort of see a slowdown. So let's at least, there's nothing limiting BIP to Web3. It's just that Web3 was our early segment. So let's target any online community that needs documents online. So, if you're building a fan community and you need to build a wiki, maybe BIP could be the place. So if you're on Discord and you are an online community that's doing anything together, let's see if we can be the place where you host your knowledge repo. So we did that, and we're continuing to get users. Like recently we got, not at Web3, basically this is a community of magicians. So they're actually collating, all the magic tricks, how they work. So that's their knowledge base, right? So that's on BIP. So we're seeing interesting use cases. So that's there. But then, I think last 2 months with Chat GPT, taking off like crazy. I mean, on the side, there's always that itch to see, what are the trends? Are we missing something? Is there something else, right? ANSI was more of a, I would say, marketing idea. You're thinking, hey, we already work great with Discord. Can we build something that will actually, there's a lot of knowledge that exists within Discord as, past chat conversations itself. So can there be a bot that actually learns based off the past conversations and answers future questions, right? And like when we initially came up with this idea, it was like, okay, can this be a standalone bot that we say, hey, ANSI by BIP or something, like we drive visibility to the BIP product. So that was the initial idea, but then
so Mark Anderson of A16C calls it "come for the tool, stay for the network." So come for the tool, stay for the network. So Instagram first started for just a filter, but then come for the filter because filters at that time sucked, and then you stay for the network, and then Snapchat did the same thing again 3 years later. Come for the nice tool. So I can sense like I can strike an empathy. Yeah, sorry, go on.
Yeah. So it was more about that, and like we thought, maybe we should build it out differently because it's much more easier to build an MVP that way. But our longer term idea was, hey, like, can this actually get back, tie back into BIP for our existing users? Like you have these hundreds of documents here. Can we allow people to ask a question and the AI bot will like look through the context, give you the answer and quote the reference of, which document it used to come up with the answer, right? Instead of users having to look through documentation, because a lot of times users come in with a specific question in mind, end users, right? They're not here to read our elaborate user manual. They're here to solve a find an answer to a very specific question. Okay. So that was the idea, I think. But when we launched ANSI on, like, we actually started building it like December 12th or 15th, around that time. And we said, hey, like Monday, we said, can we launch it by Friday? Right. And we started building it. I think by, we thought Friday, we had a very rough prototype out by Friday. By Monday, we put it out on production. I started reaching out to folks saying, hey, we have this bot. It's still in private beta. Do you want to try it out? And whoever I just sent that message to, they're like, oh, wow, this is cool. Let me try it out. And like, we had interest from very like interesting communities. There's I'm not sure if you use this tool called Excalidraw. It's a sketching kind of tool, a flow chart. Yeah. So they have an open source community on Discord. I just went there, found a mod. We integrated it with BIP. So that's how I knew that tool exists. And I was a fan. So I said, hey, like maybe all the open source communities on Discord may benefit from this tool. So that's why I went and reached out to them. They said, hey, we are interested. Immediately, like the same day, installed it on their server, involved a few other mods, tried it out. I was like, wow, this kind of pull, I've never experienced.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Right. So then we said, okay, let's continue building it out. It was just an experiment, but maybe there's something here. So we said, hey, okay, like can we clean it up and do a product hunt launch in a week, right? And then we thought, the week of the Christmas New Year week, let's do a product hunt launch. And I think by 27th December, we were ready for the launch, but that's a very low, dull week in US, right? So the hunter we reached out to, he said, you shouldn't launch it this week. You should do it right after New Year. So we put it for Jan 3rd.
Wow. And then what are the results like? Would you want to share to the community? Like how many answers?
Yeah.
And what was the ranking on the product hunt? And
so we actually ranked number 2 product of the day and number 4 of the week.
Wow.
Right. And it was super cool. Like we actually launched another product in Product Hunt like 2 years back, the Slack tool that I was talking about that we just built as a stopgap on the side. So I think our experience, from our experience, then we knew that, if we go ask a lot of our network to upvote, family members to upvote, it won't work because they're all new accounts, right? We need organic upvote. So this time we said, we'll just do a neat listing, get a good hunter, give a small initial push by, sharing it with social networks and sharing it wherever, and let the community, decide this thing. And like we were getting a lot of organic upvotes, and we stayed number 2, number 3 for almost the whole duration. I think we slipped to number 3 and until so Product Hunt launches, I think they work from 12 to 12 Pacific time. Okay. So until 9 p.m. Pacific time, we were number 3. And then we said, hey, we're very close to number 2. Maybe now we can, try to reach out to our networks, post it in, our WhatsApp status, either, see if, this last push will take us to number 2. And we did that. And actually, interestingly, when the day closed at 12 midnight, right, we were still number 3. But suddenly, I slept, next day morning, I woke up and Product Hunt sends me an email saying you're number 2 product of the day. I'm like, what? Am I dreaming? It was number 3 when I slept and the day was over yesterday. I went and saw that, our last push actually took us from number 3 to number 2. But it was a lot of organic. I think if you look at Product Hunt, these last couple of, there are a lot of small AI tools that people are building on top of Chat GPT or GPT-3, and most of them are ranking in the, I think the good ones, they're ranking in the top 5. I think people have that kind of interest. So that's also favored our launch.
Wow, that's phenomenal. Just 2 things. One is for the audience, for the benefit of everybody who might not know Product Hunt. Product Hunt is a platform that's taken off. I think AngelList acquired it later. It's a platform where you can showcase new products. You get a lot of visibility. There's obviously other similar, platforms as well. There's Hacker News, etc. If you get featured on Product Hunt and if you're ranking there, you're going to get massive traffic, high quality feedback. It's a great validation. Anybody who wants to build something, start building there. The second point is, which has sort of worked for Nitish, is he's also launched 2 years ago something. So he's seen that experience, like what are the pros and cons, what levers are working, what is done. First time, don't expect to be ranked straight away. I've never launched anything on Product Hunt because I don't have a SaaS yet. But for those of you trying to build something, many of the folks who are in the AI Web3 community, use no code, push it out there, get feedback, get rejected, positive, that's great, right? So it's phenomenal. Kudos to that, success, I would say. So now you have so you've cracked distribution. You seem to have cracked a reasonably good problem. Now, where are you? What's next?
I wouldn't say we cracked distribution. I think Product Hunt traffic definitely dies down, after a few weeks. But I think it's given us a good boost, and we're actually still getting long tail traffic from Product Hunt.
Very good.
Right. And what the Product Hunt launch also did was, until the Product Hunt launched, right, we didn't have payment. We were just, just had the pricing page on the website so that, everybody knows there's no free, this thing here, no free trial, nothing. You just can try the product out, get 10 questions free, but immediately you need to pay, kind of a thing. But with the Product Hunt launch, we said, let's actually integrate with the payment gateway and everything, and quickly put that together and launch it. And we started getting paid customers the day of product hunt launch.
Wow. And they're still like are they using it? Like, is there good retention and
yeah, from the paid users, we're actually seeing their community members ask questions. And so ultimately, it's like a mod of a Discord community pays, but they only see value when their members come and ask the bot questions and the bot's able to answer fairly well, right? So I think a few paid communities, I think they're seeing good questions being asked. The answers are fairly good. And I think what we have in the pipeline will make it even better. Currently, it's all like chat history based, right? So now we're saying, hey, like if you have documentation elsewhere, just dump that zip file to us. We'll train on that documentation too. And now your bot can actually answer much better. So if you're an open source software, or if you are just a product community, dump your user manual here, and now users can just ask a question and get the answer. Yeah. And the cool thing about ANSI is actually the sad thing about GPT-3 is that, or Chat GPT, is that sometimes it very confidently says the wrong answer, right?
Yeah, I saw that.
So you're always guessing. Like if you don't know the answer, you're guessing. If you're an expert, you know, hey, this is right, this is wrong. If you don't know, you're thinking, okay, is it right? Can I trust it? So we said, you know, with each answer, we'll give you references. Right. So it'll link. So if it's based on a message, it'll link to that message saying, hey, you know, XYZ said this in this message, and this is what I'm basing my answer on. Okay. And tomorrow when we launch documents, we'll actually give that snippet that's relevant to that answer. So that way people can trust the answers.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen that, but I think it's something the successive versions will fix. It's something fixable, right? Like the first times, you know, Google searches also were wrong, so on and so forth. Another interesting use case is probably even emails. Like I have so much email traffic, customer support is a pain. And, you know, 90% of them are like, I forgot my password, or extend my, you know, course access. Oh, I don't have access to this course. So if they fake you document, you can parse it and, you know, train it on that data set. Then can you reply to this automatically? So I think once you get that one initial, if you can conquer Discord or at least the top 50 communities, you're set with recurring.
Yeah. And the tech, I think once we figure out, you know, a working, like if we can make the tech work, yeah. Hey, we're able to train it on past conversations, we're able to train it on documents. Now you can take this and plug it into any platform, Slack, Discord, Zendesk.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Excellent. Great. And how was your experience working with the Chat GPT documentation, yours or engineer? I know I've seen it. It's extensive. It's great. What are the challenges working with Chat GPT?
Yeah. So actually we built this on, we still build this on GPT-3. I think Chat GPT's official API is not out. People have built an unofficial wrapper and they're using it, but we said, they'll anyway come up with an official API soon. So currently we're on GPT-3. Okay. It's been fairly good. Actually, they have a really good cookbook on GitHub. Okay. You know, that has, you know, different approaches. Like for example, they had you know, a tutorial on how you could do question and answers, which was where we started off to. Like that was our starting point for, you know, so what they had was something like, hey, if you want to train it to answer questions based on a document, this is how you would do it. For us, document is fine, but we didn't have documents, we have chat messages. So we took inspiration from that and built our own thing. So the cookbook actually has like so many examples, and you know, if you have an idea, very highly likely that you'll find something similar on the cookbook for you to, you know, draw inspiration from. So I think more than the documentation, I think the cookbook was great. Of course, tech documentation is tech documentation. You'll figure it out.
Awesome. I think that's very smart that you don't need to be in with the latest fad or the trend. Even one version earlier, you know, GPT-3, I think it was trained until 2018, if I'm not wrong. That itself works like brilliantly well. from to my knowledge, and it seems like you're corroborating that. Cool. So, so what I would do is right now, I have one more question to you, a few more questions, and before that, so can everybody type in their questions in the chat box? We'll take a few Q&A, based on Nitish's time, and just type. I'm giving access to everybody. Please type your question. It could be about anything. So we have we've had a fantastic conversation. I've enjoyed it so far. Badminton player, institute, secretary for sports. Now he's infiltrated into the Web3 chat community. So work for the government, and now has seen early signals of success. With ANSI. So anybody who wants to do a startup or in general wants to eventually get there, just drop in your questions. Keep it short and crisp and nice. Any questions? We'll take about 30-60 seconds as people are coming, talking about the questions. And yeah, so the last question is, so want to know about a little bit about of the fun stuff. So what do you guys fight about, you and Funny? Right? What's the founder's strife? What are the other challenges? And also just towards, forecasting into the future. So what's your June milestone? Like, what are the next steps?
Got it. So I think in terms of where we argue the most, I think it's mostly on user experience. So I think when we go into the nitty-gritties of, for example, on ANSI, it's like, do we get ANSI to reply in threads? Do we get it to reply directly? Then there are pros and cons. And then there are, everybody has inherent biases. Like I personally prefer one way, right? Because of, either your past experience or whatever, right? Trying to put those aside and just discussing on merits alone. I think we have very long discussions on user experience, like a button or, how do we do a certain flow? I think that's where a lot of our debates are on.
Got it. So what is UI UX based on past bias? I get that. What are you seeing in terms of milestones? How are you visualizing the future?
Yeah, I think for ANSI, a little too early to say. What we're seeing is, hey, we're getting paying users and we're seeing a good rub-off effect on BIP. Like people who come visit ANSI, they're also looking at BIP and they're like, oh, this is also interesting. How can I use this? So now we're trying to figure out, what's the strategy between both, right? ANSI is definitely a lot more like a simpler product for people to try, see the benefit and pay. So that timeline is very compressed. So do we focus on acquisition for ANSI and then get those users, upsell BIP to them? So we're trying to figure that out. But I think ANSI has a bunch of, I think that we still need to de-risk tech a bit. Like, for example, training on documents, then, increasing the accuracy of its answers. There's a bunch of things that we need to do from a tech perspective, not from user experience or anything. So I think for now, this month is about figuring that out and getting quickly to, maybe that $1,000 and then $5,000 MRR to, see that ANSI can actually self-sustain. Wow.
Excellent. And okay, so let's take one question. I like this question. So Sachin Anand, how is your day scheduled as an entrepreneur? Is it fixed or keeps on changing?
I think it keeps on changing, but that's also because, it's just me in the US, rest of the team is in India. So I have like my stand-ups at 9:30 p.m. in the night for me. And then typically, like, I try to have a small overlap. So I at least stay up until 11 or 12 so that, if I'm blocking any tasks or decisions, I try to close them out before I crash. But sometimes it just gets late, and if it gets late, my morning gets pushed, and then we have like a 18-month-old kid. So he dictates schedule through the day. So yeah, because of that, I think the schedule is here and there, but I think the stand-up is the anchor, right? We do a very quick stand-up at 9:30 p.m. my time. So that means, hey, before 9:30, around 8:30 or something, I just look at, was I, did I clear out all the blockers for the team? Right. Then 9:30, there's the call, then, finish up any follow-up. So I think that those 3-4 hours are like fixed in schedule in the evening. Rest of the day is very flexible.
Wow. 18-month kid. So I'm assuming your marriage must be like less than, but you've been dating for a while. So, and new startup, product market fit, just figuring out. That's like Elon Musk, mini Elon Musk there. Like cross-border in Oregon, Hyderabad time, I'm guessing. So that's crazy. Cool. So let's go to the next question. Yogesh Yadav, how do you see the future of, in general, artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning as an entrepreneur, as a user, as a developer? Also, what about Web3? Which has more potential? Do you see them merge in the future?
Interesting question. So I think by now, most of you will realize that I'm not really married to any kind of technology. It's like end user problems that sort of motivate me. Okay, for this problem, doesn't really matter what technology or what we use, but are we solving the problem, right? Yeah. So because of, I think that's been my approach mostly. With AI ML, I think a big opportunity currently is not really in building the AI itself, but a huge opportunity has opened up because of these large language models, right? Large language models and all the image generation models. Because of that, like whoever can build UI the fastest and fine tune these models the fastest for user problems, I think they'll see quick success. Like if you look at Jasper.ai, they went from 0 to $50 million ARR in 18 months, not by building their own AI ground up, right? I think maybe they're doing that now, but initially it was just, build on top of OpenAI, right? And give it out for marketing teams. Marketing teams have to like create so much content on a daily basis, right? They have tools where, like you give it an email and ask it to generate a subject line. They have tools where you give it, a website one-liner and ask it to generate a Google ad. Right? They built a lot of these small things that marketing teams really appreciate, and they went from 0 to 50 million ARR. Right? So I think in the AI ML space, I think a larger opportunity, or a more like easier opportunity for the mass of this thing is in building those flows and UIs and fine tuning or that on top of these LLMs or image models like DALL-E or Stable Diffusion and all of those. So I think whoever can figure out great UX and, tweak with these models and come up with good solutions, I think that's where we'll see a lot of solutions come out in the near future. Right. In terms of Web3, to be honest, I don't have a very strong opinion. You would have realized that when we said, hey, we don't want to stick to only Web3 and, take a step back and be for all communities. That said, I really connect with the underlying principles. I just think there's a lot of noise in Web3 currently, and whoever's dabbling into that space, I think has to, constantly keep an eye out for what is noise and what is signal.
Excellent. I love your previous answer. I mean, the first part of the answer about AI, I resonate with it completely. So if you look at, how technology evolves, right? So first time when obviously computer was invented, etc., and then there's silicon chips, and then there's computer, most of the opportunity is not in the computer anymore, right? Like building, like people made money on 8 GB RAMs, 4 GB RAMs and all that, maybe increasing the processor and all. But real money came in on applications of that, right? Like obviously Windows, Microsoft blew that up. Then apps, so on and so forth. There's evolution. So even here, I feel like making something really next level, like a convolution network, like Jeffrey Hinton. I mean, you'll have to have 30 years of PhD, post PhD and experience. Very difficult in AI. So guys who are watching this, you're slightly on the tech side. One would naturally assume like, okay, let me make more tech. But I would focus on like what Nitish was saying, just focus on the application. customer doesn't care if you have written 100 lines of code or 1,000 lines. Can you solve the problem? Pay the $10 or $20. I would focus on that for those of you trying to get into the entrepreneurship space.
Cool. And what I think, just to add to that point, right? A lot of times the base, the GPT-3 or Chat GPT, that API itself is 80% there in terms of what it generates, if you give it the right prompt. So you can just quickly go to user validation. Like you just have quickly hack together a workflow, give it a prompt. You basically seek some user input. Prompt is yours, you get the output, put it in front of the users, get them the wow or aha moment, and then you're only 80% there. Then you can focus on the tech. How do we get it from 80% to 95%? Like, how can we increase the accuracy of those answers or increase the accuracy of the output? And do we build our own custom model? Like, let's say you're doing something for healthcare, right? Instead of focusing on, hey, now I need truckloads of data that's particular that's relevant to healthcare, start with, hey, I don't need anything on healthcare. I'll just do maybe a few short kind of learning on GPT-3, get 5 examples, run it on that, show it to the end user, get a few paying customers. Now that it's validated, now I go back and figure out how do I actually build a custom model? Is it really needed?
Excellent. Yeah, that's so that's pretty smart. Cool. So let's take this one last question. Okay, so we have one question. It's Ravindra. Can a specific group of clients like farmers be helped with solutions across these language models, across the languages?
Languages here as in Telugu, Hindi languages?
I would assume that, yeah.
So one thing I'm realizing is GPT-3 or Chat GPT, they're working well across languages, even if our prompt is in English, right? We just had a client from Czech Republic and he's talking to it in their language and it's still working fine. It's not
you only care about the dollar that's coming, but you can't understand like the conversation. That's actually brilliant. But yeah, just go on.
Right. So I wouldn't say it doesn't perform as well as English because our prompt is in English and all our training data is in English. But I think for a V1, it should work well for a bunch of languages.
Yeah, I've seen some of the documentation. They're pretty good answers in German, Spanish, everywhere. I think I think the English alphabet is there. They're working very well. I'm not too sure if it will work well on
exactly, because the amount of content that they would have crawled and trained it on local Indian languages might be limited.
That's true. Perhaps even Mandarin and some of these other I don't know what is the script of English called. Maybe Latin, I don't know.
Latin, probably.
Cool. So with that, we do come to the end of this session. Once again, thank you so much. Extremely interesting journey. I enjoyed the conversation a lot. Very, very asymmetric, your profile had said. Kudos once again to the first milestone, first success, product hunt, etc. And seems like you're very close to solving something very big. Hopefully you'll outbeat Jasper's 50 mil ARR few years. It seems like you're on the path. Awesome. Thank you once again so much for your time, and again once again getting up in the morning and taking this session up. All the very best.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed the conversation too. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So guys, and for those of you who've watched it, please summarize the top 2-3 items that you have learned from this conversation. So Nitish is obviously a hardcore entrepreneur. For those of you who are thinking, those of you who are just ideating, just summarize. Please summarize, hit like and subscribe to this, and we'll come up with more such awesome sessions. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.